Hey, you can totally support this Facebook Live broadcast as well as my writing and my blog and all that stuff over on patreon.com/birdgirl1001. For as little as $2 a day, you can totally help make all the bird girl industries happen, which is kind of exciting if you think about it. Jump on over and join my other peeps who are supporting me over on Patreon. And let's get started. So today is Fuck Shit Up Friday, which is my favorite day of the week. Actually, I like Monday Mayhem too. It's been sort of enjoyable to be able to bookend my week with some revolutionary sorts of things. So I was listening today to broadcast, the Resistance Live broadcast that fellow resistor Elizabeth does, and she was talking about all of the Al Frankenness that's been happening. And she was talking about it and about how there was all this controversy lighting up on her page, and she was really, really holding tight to her conviction about that. And I'm not going to talk about that one way or another because, quite frankly, it's over. So, but one of the things she said was that we can't take down patriarchy unless we take it all down. And I think that it's really critical that we have that conversation about the fact that we can't take down patriarchy unless we take it all down. One of the things I've been dreaming about recently, like I have this vision in my head, and it's about us visualizing the world that we would like to live in. And one of the things that I've been tweeting about a lot lately is how I think it would be incredible if do you ever visualize the cartoon hands came down and picked up all of the men in elected office and just sort of pulled them out and replaced them with women of their same party? So I'm not even talking about like shifting things so there's more Democrats or more Republicans in power. I'm just literally talking about coming in and picking up all of the men and then putting all the women in their place. And so the men would replace the women and the women would replace the men. And really what I'm thinking here is that it would just be really phenomenal if that happened, because we could do that for about 98 years, which is how long women have had the right to vote. And then we could see how much shift happens in our politics. Because if we're tired of the Grabby McGrabbersons and the Handsy McHandersons, and we're tired of the patriarchy, and we really want to take down the patriarchy because we can't take it down unless we take it all down, then maybe we should get rid of the Grabby McGrabbersons and the Handy McHandersons, because women aren't going around like grabbing and doing all those things that I know of. And maybe we should eliminate all that just by simply replacing all the men and women. And a lot of people have been like, no, Missy, that's silly and that's not equal and those aren't those things. But I'm just thinking maybe there's something to that idea. And that's why I keep saying over and over again, we need to stop arguing about how people are handling harassment and start arguing about how we're going to get more women into office. And this isn't just a partisan issue at all. And in fact, the power, I don't think, is in playing partisan politics. Because I think if we continue to eat each other alive and argue about this stuff, thanks, Cheryl, for your thumbs up. If we continue to argue about this stuff, we aren't going to get, we're not going to shift the power dynamics, and we're not going to shift how things look in this country if we just keep arguing about how things are being currently handled. And if we shifted the seats and we shifted things, hi Shelly, how are you? Thanks for your thumbs up. If we shifted the seats to women, Republican women and Democratic women, and we shifted the power structure, then we wouldn't have to argue about how things are being handled when it comes to harassment against women, because the harassment against women would diminish in the places of power because women would inherently have more power. And so this is sort of leads me into this next thing I want to talk about, which is this argument that all Republican women are bad people. Now, I am not saying that the 53% of people who voted for Donald Trump were not misguided, because I think they were personally, and that is my personal belief. But I also think attacking Republican women is also not the answer to solving the problem in America. The trick is to have more women in office at all levels of government, from city council all the way up to the federal government, so that, and even the president's office, God forbid we have a woman as the president, because we have got to moderate things and not have things be so extreme. And we know when women are in office, when women hold office, women moderate their parties and they focus more on getting stuff done for the community and more on policy and less on all this other garbage. And I think it's really critical that that is the conversation that we have. So just imagine a world where we didn't criticize other people for their choices, and instead we helped build other women up. It's crazy talk. And I have fallen into this myself. I'm not going to say that I am doing this perfectly, like I'm living this perfect angelical life where I don't criticize other people. But I'm also saying that there's this thing about self-criticism that holds us back as women. And we're really, really good at engaging in self-criticism. And so I have come up with a list of the top 10 things I wouldn't have done if I had stayed or was afraid of criticism. Are you ready? It's sort of like Letterman-esque. Okay, so if I would have stayed afraid of criticism, I would not have built a bomb-ass following online. I have this world that's full of magical feminists and kick-ass academics and gorgeous friendships and glorious politicians, and I never would have built this big-ass bomb following online if I would have stayed afraid of criticism. Number 9, I would not have pursued and obtained a PhD. Let's just talk about the PhD madness for just a minute. That is insane. If you want to know if the patriarchy is alive and well, go into academia. Okay, so I applied for my PhD with mediocre grades. I actually had to nearly fail statistics. I almost failed statistics. Statistics during my PhD put me in the fetal position in the dark in my closet, rocking back and forth like I was going to completely lose my mind. But I passed it because I got a tutor. Hyun Sung is my favorite person on earth. I got a tutor, and I passed statistics. I even got an A or a B. I got a B. It doesn't matter, because if I would have been afraid of criticism, I never would have gotten the PhD, and now people have to call me doctor. So, and the last thing I really want to talk about is how I was told my work is irrelevant. I have been told on numerous occasions in the social work community that reproductive health and reproductive justice has nothing to do with social work. I'm just going to let y'all absorb that for just a minute. Reproductive health and reproductive justice has nothing to do with social work. That is the biggest bunch of bullshit I have ever heard in my life. So number 9 in my list of what I wouldn't have done if I would have been afraid of criticism is pursued and obtained a PhD. Number 8, I would never have gone to a therapist. I was getting divorced in 2010 in the gnarliest divorce known to man. It was so public and so awful and so horrifying. It was the worst thing ever. And I went to a therapist. It was crazy, which made me look at my own failings. And it also got me to start praying. Praying? I know, it's crazy talk. But it was a really good way for me to figure out how to quote unquote meditate, or at least find a space where I could pray to somebody to talk to me about my stuff. And imagine in my course of going to therapy where I discovered that the person that I prayed to was actually like the white God, like the white Jesus God with the long beard that I used to see hanging up in church when I was a kid in Utah, the really, really white Jesus. But that was the Jesus that I prayed to, ironically. And so pardon the bumping behind me. The cats have apparently decided to start playing with the rearranging I'm doing for Christmas. Anyway, gone to a therapist. I had to criticize myself. I had to look at myself critically. It was awesome. Number 7, I would have never told my mom I needed her to apologize for my childhood. Now, I don't know how many of you have a complicated relationship with your mother, but I used to have a really severely complicated relationship with my mother until I realized that my mother is actually a woman. So we go through this really funny moment in our lives, I think, as adult women, where we're like, oh my God, my mom's a woman. And I realized that the reason she was a little bit crazy during my childhood was because her heart had broken when my dad had committed suicide. And I recognized that because I went through my own heartbreak when I was getting divorced. And so I actually confronted my mom and said, I really need you to apologize for our childhood. And then I'm going to apologize to you for judging how you handled us when you were going through your own grief and heartbreak. And it really opened up our relationship. And now I know that I can trust her. But if I would have been afraid of my mom criticizing me again, like she used to when I was younger, I never would have done that. And my relationship with my mom would not have been as kick-ass as it is right now. Number 6, I would never have written and submitted my first article for publication. So my first article for publication is called Social Justice Advocacy in the Belly of the Beast. It is fucking bomb. It is like my social work manifesto of awesome that talks about how social workers can engage in massive acts of social justice to dismantle the patriarchy and help us win the war on women. Because the war on women is really just about misogyny. And I am so proud of that article. And it was published by Affiliate, which is the feminist journal for social work. And I am so proud of it. And what that led to, writing and submitting my first article, was the most painful, excruciating experience of my life because I was terrified of being criticized. And what I realized through the process of editing and getting feedback was that I am a really, really kick-ass writer. I'm incredibly passionate. One of my writing coaches, Linda Schreier, says that my writing is like a freight train. It just barrels into you. But I have written 10 journal articles. I've written 1 book. I'm a contributor regularly on the Kind Over Matter blog. I have my own successful blog. I wrote Marginalized No More, which is the most kick-ass social justice training on the planet. Not to mention the fact that I have written 40,000 words and 40,000 essays, or in 40 essays, and it is just gorgeous. What has happened since I wrote my first article in 2014 is that I have become a kick-ass social justice writer. And I never would have done that if I would have stayed afraid of being criticized. Number 5, I never would have done the things I was meant to do. I am meant to be an author. I am meant to be a coach. I am a kick-ass advocacy coach. I was meant to be a professor and teach. I was meant to be a mentor and an advocate and an inspirer and a resistor and a revolutionary and a lobbyist. And I never would have become those things if I would have been afraid of criticism. I never would have done the things I was meant to do on this planet. And what I was meant to do on the planet is shift things for people and inspire people to go out and make a difference in their communities. And I never would have done that if I would have stayed afraid of criticism. Number 4, I never would have gone to Scotland against my husband's wishes. And when I was rating these to Jim last night, he was like, "Oh, hey, Hadass, how you doing, buddy? It's nice to see you." So when I read this to Jim last night, he started laughing and he's like, why is going to Scotland against my wishes on your list? Because, and I will tell you why, if I would have been afraid of his criticism about me going, because he was very unpleased with me going to Scotland, I never would have met Susan Hyatt, who is, quite frankly, the greatest flippin' coach I have worked with in ages. I never would have built this community of women that I now consider my friends from all over the world. I never would have been able to do my Fanning the Flames training at the Be Golden Conference, because I never would have met Chelsea, who put that conference together. I never would have developed the creativity in my business that I'm creating that makes me so excited and so happy and that is lighting all these women on fire. I never would have reconnected to myself. I got to go lay in this ancient forest in Scotland and just lay there and listen to the animals and the trees and the spirits. And it was beautiful and it was wonderful and it was amazing. And I connected to myself in a way that I have never connected before. Not to mention the fact that I totally got to go on a couple of Outlander tours. So I got to see where they do Outlander and it was really amazing. I never would have done that if I would have listened to my husband's criticism. All right. For those of you who are just joining, I'm going through the top 10 things that I would never have done if I would have stayed afraid of being criticized. Number 3, I never would have told the truth about loving my husband. So my husband and I met in a very complicated way in a bar. And I really had no intention of ever staying with my husband. And then all of a sudden, magically out of nowhere, I fell in love with my husband. And what that has led to, the criticism is that I had been with women for 12 years before I got together with Jim. And I lost friends and I was criticized and I went through a heart-wrenching heartbreak, not just during my divorce from my ex-wife, but also a heartbreak because my friends were no longer my friends because they couldn't understand why I wanted to be with this man. But what that criticism has led to is the most honest relationship I've ever had in my life, the longest relationship I've ever had in my life, the deepest, most sensual relationship I've ever had in my life. And it has also led to me being a mother. And that is one of the most glorious things on the planet because I told the truth about loving my husband. Hi, Hadas. How are you? It's nice to see you. Number two, the number two thing I never would have done if I would have stayed afraid of criticism was become a leader. Becoming a leader is scary ass shit. You're putting yourself out in front of the world. Things are going nuts. People decide that they can tell you how they think you should behave and how you should act, even though it goes against everything you are. And it is the hardest thing I've ever done. But what it has done is give me exposure to say my words and speak my truth. And what it has done is make me grateful that I am strong and wise and brilliant and awesome. And it has given me the opportunity to connect with my sheroes and my heroes. And it has been so beautiful that I was not afraid to stand up and be visible and be myself so that I could connect with these phenomenal human beings that I know. And it has allowed me to be an inspirer to my children. So when my children talk about me to other people, they talk about me as a hero. And they talk to me about I'm Wonder Woman. And they talk about how I inspire them to take leadership positions in their own lives. And that is really a remarkable, remarkable thing. Because if I would have stayed afraid of criticism, I never would have become the leader that I am today. And I wouldn't be sitting here doing these kick-ass Facebook Lives with all of you guys, which is super magical and amazing. The number one thing that I would not have done if I would have stayed afraid of criticism is slay the patriarchy. Hi, Shelly. Thank you. I love your positiveness too. Thanks. It's really important right now because we're really having a hard time right now as a nation. All of us are. And I think especially the women are feeling it really deep down in our core. And it's really, we're struggling to find things that inspire us and light us up. And that's really why I'm doing this work. That's really why I'm doing Fuck Shit Up Friday. Because imagine if we fuck shit up in our own lives and stirred it up and stirred the pot and really, really, really focused on the stuff that lights us on fire. We could shift this whole dynamic completely. It would be incredible. The number one thing that I wouldn't have done if I would have stayed afraid of criticism is slayed the patriarchy. Slay the patriarchy. I, every day, am engaging in acts that slay the patriarchy. I had to give some self-reflection of my own inner asshat. What do I mean by that? I have had to look at my own failings and my own shortcomings and the things that hold me back. Yes, Shelly, we absolutely have got to work together. It is critical at this moment that we stop being so divisive with each other, especially as women. If I would not have looked at my own inner asshat, I would not be evolving into the leader that I am today. And I have had to own where I am racist and where I am judgmental and where I am afraid of things that are different and people that are different than me. And it has been critical to my evolution as a feminist and as a woman and as a partner and a friend and a mother. And it's been very hard for me to figure out what that looks like. I have given myself permission to be an imperfect activist. We do not slay the patriarchy by being perfect. Sometimes the things I say don't come out the way I want them to. But that's okay, because if we embrace our imperfection, then we still are doing the things that lead us to passionate living. And that's really critical in advocacy. Hey, Jim Kelly, what's up? You just missed me talking about you. It was really awesome. So, if we do not give ourselves permission to be imperfect activists, we're going to keep waiting for the perfect time to change our communities. That time is never going to come. That time is now. It is time for us to pull out the big guns and start fighting against the stuff that is going to destroy the very nature and the very fabric of this nation. And giving myself permission to be imperfect has led me to be able to inspire others, including perfect strangers. Shelly, I think you and I are actually one of the perfect examples. You wrote this great book. We connected on Twitter, I think. And I've connected with all these phenomenal women on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram that I would never have known otherwise if I wouldn't have given myself permission to slay the patriarchy and be imperfect. And I really, really love that I put away the fear of criticism, because believe me, if you want to see people get criticized, tell somebody you're a feminist. Because the minute you out yourself as a feminist, people think that they have a right to say all sorts of really, really disturbingly inappropriate things about you. They have the right to make lots of assumptions and criticize you all over the place when you say that you are a feminist. And I really think it's critical that if we are going to slay the patriarchy, we have got to come out as feminists. Because if we don't come out as feminists, we are not going to take the entire system and structure down. And I sort of feel like right now, I don't know if any of you have seen like World War Z or the Lord of the Rings, but there's like scenes where like in Lord of the Rings the orcs are climbing all over themselves to get up a wall, and in World War Z all the zombies are climbing all over themselves to get up a wall. And I've often said that like I visualize in my head that like Gollum from Lord of the Rings is like totally freaking out because that's what the patriarchy is right now. And I feel like the patriarchy is just climbing all over itself to survive, and it's clawing its way, and it's not going to work because we're visible, we're here, and we have to pay attention to what's happening. And we are not going to shift the power, the infrastructure of power, if we continue to fight and really try and tear other women down. It's not going to work. There are some women that we are never going to agree with ever, ever, ever. But there are more that we can come and find common ground with, and I think it's critical to moving forward. So there's two things I have coming up this week that are really super exciting that I want you to know about. The first one is on Monday. If you have ever wanted to run for office, if you've ever thought about running for office, if you know anybody who wants to run for office, my friend Melanie Childers and I have a free webinar that we have put together that's happening on Monday. And all the details, I'll put all the details in here in the comments, but they're also on my website. And then the other thing that's coming up is that I have 2 events starting in January, one of which is selling out quickly. And that is on January 17th, I'm doing a Fanning the Flames workshop in Massachusetts. It's going to be totally off the hook. It's in Western Mass. And I hope y'all can make it to that. All that information is pinned on my Facebook page, and it's going to be a totally incredible experience for people. And the other thing is I just got asked to speak at the anniversary of the Women's March in Corvallis, Oregon. So I'm really excited about that too. I think you all are amazing. Thank you all for being here with me on my Facebook Live today. It's Friday. Go fuck shit up, y'all. Peace.